So, welcome Michael Lynch. Mike is the County Archivist from Kerry County Council. My name is Victoria McCarthy and we're here today in the most beautiful surroundings of St John's Church in Listowel. So, hello Mike.
Hi Victoria.
How are things?
Not so bad.
Good, good. So, can you just tell us a little bit about St John's Church?
Yeah, St John's Church has been here since 1819 and it was designed Gothic style to a James Payne design. It's one of only two churches that he'd actually did in Kerry. It was funded by the Board of First Fruits. In fact, Samuel Lewis says about it, the church, which is the principal one in the Union, is a handsome structure in the later English style with a square tower surmounted by a neat spire and is strengthened with buttresses terminating in pinnacles. It was erected by aid of a gift of £500 and a loan of £1,000 from the Board of First Fruits in 1819. The area surrounding the church is enclosed by a neat iron railing and planted. Obviously that's gone now, that iron railing and planting is no longer part of the structure. But it is a fabulous church. We're very lucky to have it here in Listowel in terms of its contribution to everything that happens in the town at this stage. Under the stewardship first of Joe Murphy and now of Maura Logue. It's going from strength to strength, if anything, thanks be to God.
So listen, can you just tell me a little bit about records in general and how you found out the information about the church?
Yeah, the information about the church itself, books like Samuel Lewis's Topographical Dictionary are very good, and particularly for a church like this, which, because it's 1819, is very new in terms of Samuel Lewis, which was published in 1837. So he's very aware of its building almost as well as its outcome. In terms of records of the Church of Ireland for Listowel Parish, irishgenealogy.ie, which is the free government site, has 318 baptismal records for Listowel Parish covering the period 1799 to 1871. There's 118 burials recorded by Irish Genealogy for Listowel Parish from 1809 to 1871 and 73 records of marriage.
And I suppose from my own point of view, obviously the plans and elevations of the building are available online.
That's right.
In the representative body. And interesting as well, you mentioned about the railings earlier, and those railings can be seen on the Lawrence collection photographs of the town, and the National Library of Ireland have digitised those.
Yes.
And they're all online now, and it's a great resource.
But there are so many of those views of the square as well. And again, each time in those photographs, your eye is drawn to the church because it is right smack bang in the middle, as we mentioned earlier. And it really does provide such a focal point for the market town that is Listowel.
Okay, Mike, shall we go out now and have a look at some tombstones, and you can tell me some stories about them.
Hewson of Ennismore, Deputy Lieutenant for the County of Kerry, who fell asleep in Jesus December 4th, 1896, age 86. Now his obituary in the Kerry Evening Post states that up to the past week the deceased gentleman was out as usual and apparently in the best of health. A few days ago, however, he had sustained an accident, the result of a fall, which is stated to have been the primary cause of his death. Congestion of the lungs is stated to have supervened, but notwithstanding the skills of Doctors Dillon and O'Halloran and the solicitude of his family, the patient passed quietly away, having attained the green old age, respected by many, disliked by none. The harvest home is now, like many another time-honoured ancient function, observed more generally in the breach than in the observance. Mr. Hewson, ever desirous of contributing to the enjoyment of those placed under his control, carried out the function with much éclat at Ennismore, and this served to strengthen the happy relations which have always subsisted between him and his tenantry. When in his 23rd year the wreck of the city of Limerick took place off the Ballybunion coast, Mr. Hewson, recognising the perilous condition of 4 members of the crew, rode out on his horse, Scott, and succeeded in rescuing the seamen. The sea at the time was running high, and in a few minutes more the men would have been dashed to pieces. The rest of the crew were lost. Okay, this stone is sacred to the memory of Elizabeth Jessie, the 4th and dearly loved daughter of the Venerable Archdeacon Gould and Caroline his wife. A lovely bride elect on earth, she exchanged her wedding robes for the garments of salvation, June 18th, 1862, aged 19. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord. This is Bessie Gould, who on the 18th of June 1862 died at Caen in France. The sad event, it says in the Kerry Evening Post, plunged the venerable gentleman and family into deepest grief. The bridal day was fixed and nothing but happiness appeared in the future, but having gone out on a picnic party, she caught a fever which proved fatal. Sacred to the memory of Walter Hussey Hill Griffith, the only and dearly beloved son of William Downes Griffith Esquire, who died at Listowel May 17, 1849, aged 12 years. In form and mind a gem on earth so rare, God took him in his own special care. His parents mourn, yet still that God adore, who keeps their child, not lost, but gone before. Now, it's a bit curious that he's referred to as our only and dearly beloved son in that, because a month earlier we have the baptisms of William Poppleton Griffith and Isabella Susan Griffith, who were the children of William Downes Griffith here in Listowel Parish, and yet Walter Hussey is declared to be their only beloved son. Maybe they just didn't like their other two children. In memory of Lely Francis, beloved child of George Hewson Esquire, J.P. of Ennismore, who died 11th of September 1868, aged 18 years and 4 months. For me to live in Christ is Christ, to die is gain. Them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. Now, Miss Hewson's obituary in the Tralee Chronicle on the 15th of September 1868 makes for very sad reading. Obviously I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but it does conclude with a poem by Ben Jonson, The Noble Nature. It is not growing like a tree, in bulk doth make man better be, or standing long an oak 300 year, to fall a log at last, dry, bald and sere. A lily of a day is fairer far in May, although it fall and die that night, it was the plant and flower of light. In small proportions we just beauty see, and in short measures life may perfect be. Sacred to the memory of my beloved husband, Henry A. Ellis, Lieutenant H.M. 82nd Regiment, who departed this life at the Hotel de Louvre, Paris, the 26th of May, AD 1863, aged 28, after 3 years of deep and acute sufferings which he bore with heavenly patience. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And it's from Josephine, his wife Ellis. Now, Henry Ellis didn't get an obituary in any of the local newspapers. The first mention of his death is actually in the Kerry Evening Post a week after his death, June 27th. And it is among the military promotions and exchanges, where the note is that Ensign Charles Battle is to be a lieutenant without purchase, vice, which is instead of, Henry Abigail Ellis, deceased. Now, Henry Abigail Ellis was in the 82nd Regiment, and the regimental timeline shows that they served at Sevastopol, the siege of Sevastopol in the Crimean War in 1855, and then moved to India, where Henry would have been involved in the recapture of Cawnpore and also the reinforcement of Lucknow in the Indian Mutiny. This is probably where he ended up getting invalided out of the army and back to Paris, where he ultimately died. In loving memory of our beloved parents, Paul Sweetnam Esquire died 18th of March 1935, and his wife, Mary Ann Sweetnam, died 22nd of August 1941. He giveth his beloved sleep. Psalm 127 verse 3. Now, Paul Sweetnam of Fieldview, Listowel, he served for several years as the agent to Lord Listowel and to several other estates. The Irish Examiner's, or Cork Examiner as was then, obituary for him on the 23rd of March 1935 notes, the deceased gentleman, who was a native of Cork, County Cork, has resided in Listowel for close on 40 years. He acted as a state agent for Lord Listowel for a period of 32 years and acted in a similar capacity for the late Sir Arthur Vickers of Kilmorna and the late Mrs. Mary Gordon Cook of Tanavalla. He was also Secretary of the Trust Fund of the Irish Land Commission, and he was a very active committee member of the North Kerry Agricultural and Industrial Show Society from its inception, so founder member of the North Kerry Show. In loving memory of Charles Lycett Bruce Hewson, engineer, Nigerian Government Railway, served as Lieutenant Attached Royal Engineers, with the Allied armies in the Cameroons. Second surviving son of George Hewson Esquire, DL of Ennismore. Born 1st of September 1881, died and buried at sea 12th of April 1917. The sea shall give up its dead. Now, Lieutenant Hewson died on his way back from the war, and the Kerry Evening Post notes in its obituary on April 25th, 1917, news has been cabled of the death from paratyphoid on the 12th inst on board the SS Abbess, homeward bound from West Africa, of Mr. Charles Hewson, second son of the late George Hewson, DL of Ennismore, Listowel, and of Mrs. Wynne Griffith. At the outbreak of the war, Mr. Hewson was in the colonial service. He volunteered for active service, obtained a commission and was attached to the Royal Engineers. He served through the campaign in the German Cameroons and was mentioned in dispatches. He was a fine sportsman and had travelled a great deal. Great sympathy is felt for his sorrowing family. Mr. Hewson was buried at sea. In memory of the Reverend Edward Maynard Denny, for 29 years vicar of this parish, born 1792, died April 30th, 1862. Also of Jane Denny, his wife, born January 1st, 1812, died July 2nd, 1878. I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord. Now, I don't have an awful lot about Edward Maynard Denny. We see from the stone itself that he served for 29 years as vicar of the parish. He also served in other parishes in Kerry as well, including Ahavallen and Kilnocton. The Kerry Evening Post makes a note on the 30th of April 1862. We have just heard of the death of the above-named gentleman, that's Reverend Edward Maynard Denny, rector of Listowel, which took place yesterday at his residence near Listowel, at an advanced age after a lingering illness. The Reverend Mr. Denny held for many years the extensive union of Listowel, which embraces the whole barony of Arachticonor and contains 4 churches. He sometime previously held the living of Tralee. To the memory of David Fitzgerald, son of the Knight of Kerry, late Major 60th Royal Rifles, and died at Sligo on Monday the 1st of May 1848. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. This is David Fitzgerald, who served in the civil service after his military service was done. And the most notable thing about him is possibly the fact that he served in Scariff Union in County Clare, where, as the Tralee Chronicle notes, destitution had prevailed as to as great an extent as in any part of Ireland. In fact, it got so bad in Scariff that after the Major's death, there's a further note in the Kerry Evening Post in the 23rd of May 1849, which says that Scariff Union has now the unenviable distinction of being the most wretched and destitute in the south of Ireland. The present inspecting officer of Skibbereen, who had been administering the poor law provisions in Scariff, considers his removal a release, as however great the destitution in Skibbereen, it was almost nothing compared to the lamentable condition of all classes in the Union of Scariff. In memory of Gladys Mauds Sands, FRCS England, 1897 to 1968, elder daughter of John Sands of Greenville, wife of James Maxwell Alston, MD, FRCP, Edinburgh, and adoptive mother of Lilac Rose Margaret. Now, Gladys Maud actually qualified in 1922, which makes her very early in terms of lady doctors, lady surgeons, and she died in 1968. There's a note. She died at 41 Devonshire Street in London, and she left an estate of £15,450, which would have been pretty sizable in 1968. Virtus Fortunae Victrix. In memory of John Sands, died May 31st, 1845, aged 54, and his eldest son, George Sands, died 25th of October, 1895, aged 74, both of this parish. I know that my Redeemer liveth. Now, Virtus Fortunae Victrix, the Latin translation from that into English is, virtue is the victor over fate. There was not an awful lot of virtue when it came to George Sands himself. What I've brought with me is some briefs for council which were to do with the Parnell Commission, to which they reckoned George Sands would be called as a witness, and so they prepared a little brief about George Sands, and it read: George Sands, J.P. Listowel, Kerry, who was lately High Sheriff of the county, will probably be a witness. Sands is the most notorious scoundrel in this position in Kerry, and although he may not be relied upon to answer the questions straightly put to him in cross-examination, overwhelming evidence can be given of his gross immorality and his frequent refusals to take the rent from the male members of the family in order to inveigle the females into his offices for purposes of immorality.
Right, Mike, thank you very much. That was very interesting. I never knew all of that, so thank you so much. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier as well about the spire, and I suppose just for the purposes of Heritage Week, St John's has been a receipt of funding under the Historic Towns Initiative from the Heritage Council and the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. So it's a good year to be here. There's the spire is currently under wraps at the moment, and there's a lot of work going on as we speak. So hoping to see that now when it's finished at the end of September. So Mark, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all your research, and thank you to St John's.